Hello everybody. In a recent interview with Yahoo Finance, the legendary hedge fund investor and founder of Bridgewater Associates, Ray Dalio, answered some fundamental questions regarding Bitcoin's feasibility and whether or not governments would allow it to continue. I'll cover these responses he gives today in this quick video, so stay tuned. Hi everybody, welcome back to The Contrarian. For those of you who are new here, my name is Logan. I really like to talk about overall success investing, as well as going against the crowd. Just the fundamental thrust of my channel essentially is that if you don't go against the crowd, you're not going to be able to outperform the crowd. So if you like these kinds of topics and you get to the end of this video and you want to hear more, just consider subscribing. And I'll also make a disclaimer just regarding what I'll be talking about today, which is Bitcoin. There are just a ton of different scams out there right now, and probably even down in the comments you'll even see some. So just be aware that there are a lot of those out there right now. So to get started, it was somewhat shocking for me to hear all of the encouraging things Ray Dalio had to say regarding Bitcoin. Let's look at the transcripted interview that he had. Although Dalio does believe that the cryptocurrency could be outlawed, he was clear on the fact that Bitcoin has proved itself as an asset class over the past 10 years. It hasn't been hacked, it's by and large therefore worked on an operational basis. It has built a significant following. It is an alternative, in a sense, storehold of wealth. It's like digital cash, and those are the pluses, he said. The fact that he views the digital asset in a largely positive light isn't news to many after he recently called Bitcoin one hell of an investment in a January research paper from Bridgewater. So this definitely places Ray Dalio in a different category than other people of his caliber, such as Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger, or even Michael Burry, all of whom have essentially dismissed Bitcoin as a temporary, euphoria-driven bubble. And that might be, due to their honest thinking, or because in some cases Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, they really benefit from the existing monetary system. But, it is interesting to see Dalio essentially differentiate himself from those people. And as to what, ends up occurring with Bitcoin and the regulation of cryptocurrencies really has to be seen. But Dalio also, he's had some bearish thoughts on Bitcoin, and it isn't due to any specific fault of Bitcoin in and of itself, but it has to do with the central banks and basically the necessity for them to control the currency, whatever form that might take. In an interview he says, every country treasures its monopoly on controlling the supply and demand. They don't want other monies to be operating or competing because things can get out of control. So I think that it would be very likely that you have it under a certain set of circumstances outlawed the way gold was outlawed. So essentially the only potential Achilles heel Ray Dalio sees with Bitcoin is that if it does continue to gain momentum as it has, recently, and if it actually begins to challenge the currencies of central banks, like if more businesses begin adopting Bitcoin as actually a means of transferring and transactions, such as what is currently going on in India, the central banks might actually decide to shut it down. They would essentially have no choice but to shut it down. They either would shut down their competition or they lose control of the nation's currency, and that could then spiral into the government essentially losing control of its own economy. So Dalio is not, and I'm not arguing that this is a good or bad move, only that it would be the expected move from any central bank or government, if they wish to remain in control of their own economy, which basically any government would. So as to whether or not the United States Federal Reserve begins to take action on heavier regulation of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency really remains to be seen, but it definitely would not surprise me, as they've taken similar actions to gold when that began to challenge the dollar roughly 100 years ago. So as to what all of you watching this decide to do as a result is totally up to you. Me personally, I'm just content to sit back and watch and observe what happens with cryptocurrencies right now. But as a slight side note, I do think that blockchain technology will continue to become more relevant in our everyday lives, and it might not only be in the form of monetary exchanges, but there's many other categories requiring mutual verification and trust. There are just so many ways that the fundamental blockchain technology could be used that it currently is not being used with. So in a way, kind of like in the early 1990s, the internet was just coming about and we didn't really know what form that and use that would take. I think we're kind of beginning to see initial uses and attempts to use blockchain right now. but the scope of what it ends up being used for, in my opinion, really remains to be seen. So if you guys like this kind of video, just consider subscribing and hitting the like button. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down and let me know why down in the comments, and I hope to see you again.